Hello, this is TelecomTV. We are at the Internet of Retail event in Gerrards Cross in Buckinghamshire, north of London in the stockbroker belt, and I'm talking with Kash Ghedia, who is Head of Technology at Dixons Carphone. Kash, thanks for talking to us. Good to see you.
No problem at all.
Right, let's begin by talking about Dixons Carphone. This is going out around the world, so you've got an international audience. And maybe not everybody around the place will know what Dixons Carphone is. It's an amalgam of two companies, one of which was a Carphone warehouse. Over to you.
Yeah, so Dixons Carphone. Dixon's a true sort of electronics retailer in the UK and within Europe. And obviously we went through a bit of a merger about 12 to 18 months ago where we brought the best of breed from the Carphone business and brought both those businesses together. It's Dixons Carphone. We're selling all the usual stuff that you'd expect from an electronics retailer, but also infusing that with our Carphone business, which is all our mobile devices, and then trying to create a better journey in store around how we can get that cross-pollination of devices and customers across both businesses.
That leads me directly into the Internet of Retail and IoT. What impact, as far as you're concerned in the company, is the Internet of Things having on the retail side now?
Well, Internet of Things is quite a large sort of piece.
It sure is.
It can be from basically smartwatches all the way to mobile handsets or Fitbit trackers. And from our perspective as an electronics retailer, it's something that we've spent some time looking at and obviously selling. We sort of did some shop and shops probably about 12 months ago, really understanding what really sells, what are customers looking for in terms of Internet of Things devices, and then how do they play a role in our lifestyle. So as a retailer, I think as we sell those devices, we also look at, well, actually, if we're selling those devices, there's a piece around how do we support customers longer term with all these Internet of Things that they might be putting in their homes, from home automation systems to smart kettles to smart watches. So I think this is quite still a new area for a lot of us, and it's something that we're exploring in terms of not only selling those devices, but then potentially how do we support those customers once they've bought those devices.
Thank you. Now, to do what you're doing, given the amount of rapid change that's taking place in the retail industry as a result of the Internet of Things, you must have a policy and a strategy for doing that. How do you formulate it?
Well, I think it's one of those things where as the Internet of Things is still quite a new piece for us, we're sort of developing ideas and concepts around how do we actually formulate a policy potentially. So we're doing a lot of quick litmus test testing. So last year, for example, we trialed our smartwatch platform where we wanted to try smartwatches for colleagues. So not just it being a smartwatch for the home, the average consumer, but actually turning it into an enterprise device potentially. So I think for us, it's still very much a learning curve, trying to understand how Internet of Things can play a role within retail and within the enterprise, but then also how do we infuse that with the average customer as well.
Thank you. Now, there's a lot of hype around IoT at the moment, obviously. As we said, it's growing very quickly. And as you've already said, as an overarching concept, it's a bit hard to get your head around it because it applies to everything, which is why a lot of people are very pleased about the fact you can now silo it, as it were, into vertical markets like retail, like health, like plastics, chemicals, agriculture, whatever. You've mentioned the benefits and what you get out of it as a company. What do the customers get out of it?
I think, from a customer's point of view, it's two things, right? So number one, customers buying the product and trying it on and understanding what those benefits are. So, for example, if they're buying smart watches, being able to get your exercise status updates or emails, being able to do some home automation from it. From a retail standpoint, from an enterprise standpoint, I think the benefits are around sort of operational efficiencies potentially that we can gain out of that. So being able to deploy smart technologies in the right place and right manner with potentially our colleagues, for example, and how they can harness that to better serve our customers, for example.
That's all on the plus side, and obviously consumer data is a gold dust in all of this. And the quid pro quo often is a consumer gets something from it in exchange for giving you willingly data that you can use to predict to detect patterns, etc. What about the pitfalls in the implementation of IoT? Have you been surprised by things you didn't expect?
Well, this is quite interesting. So I think we haven't had any major pitfalls per se. I think IoT it's a learning curve, and it's a learning curve for us as an electronics retailer, but for retail in general. And I think there's a lot of innovators out there in terms of companies sort of playing around in this space, and I think for us, it's more around doing quick litmus tests with different IoT devices, understanding the benefits that we can gain as a business, but also being able to give those benefits to our customers. And so for us, I think it's much more about learning quickly and then implementing that throughout a planned rollout.
Now, you're a technologist, Kash. Let's talk a bit about technology for the time being. We hear a great deal across all IoT industries about ecosystems, another buzzword of the year and last year, and no doubt will be with us for a while.
Yeah.
As far as you're concerned, what is the Internet of Retail ecosystem? What does it look like? How does it work?
That's interesting. So I think the word ecosystem and Internet of Things, they're both new pieces, and I think I don't think there's any company yet that's created the secret sauce, so to speak, in terms of what the ecosystem looks like. I think what we're looking at is basically point technologies that we can basically deploy within store that we can then tie together to create some sort of single customer view. But I think in terms of an ecosystem, I think it's still a fact-finding mission for us as a business to understand what we do with those point technologies and how do we harness that and provide ultimately a better customer service for customers in store.
Thank you. Now, when you apply, purchase, use, deploy your IoT technology and equipment, where do you get it from? You're obviously, part of it's already there because of the nature of the business. But
Correct.
Where do you get it from? Do you source it from traditional service providers like BT or Vodafone, for example? Because in lots and lots of mobile cases, a lot of traffic is backhauled on the BT system, for example. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Do you lease or do you buy packaged solutions from systems integrators, or do you go to retail sector specific vendors?
I think one of the unique places that we're in is that we work with a lot of the IoT manufacturers. So for us, it seems like a natural sort of evolution to then speak to them around sort of enterprise products potentially, or looking at their products and saying, how can you actually create this product in an enterprising way? And I think a lot of the IoT manufacturers that we deal with, at this moment in time, their biggest focus has been around the consumer. How do we get these IoT devices to the consumer? So I think the conversations that we're having at the moment with some of the suppliers is that, hey, actually, if we look at this, you can actually turn it into an enterprise piece of software or application or product, and potentially then we could use it potentially within our retail environment. So we work with partners sort of across the globe in terms of the hardware partners, and then sort of working with other solutions partners to build software solutions that can sit on that piece of hardware.
A final question to you, Kash, is this. What role do you think the traditional network operators, we've just been talking about, the likes of BT in the UK, and communications, what is the role in all of this? So they've got huge networks, they're spending a lot of money virtualizing them and introducing SDN and NFV, the cloud, virtualization, transformation, the whole thing. 5G is somewhere just over the horizon there, just about to stick its head over the parapet. And they own these huge networks, they've got a lot of bandwidth, and they're important, don't get me wrong, but a lot of smaller companies I've been talking to say, we're not really overly concerned with whether we use traditional network operators or not, because A, they're slow and cumbersome and expensive, and B, we don't want to get locked into them down the line and not be able to get out. What's your take on that?
Well, it's interesting. So I think there's been as you probably already know, there's a massive convergence within the mobile sector. So
Sure.
we've got some mergers and acquisitions being made in this place at the moment. But I think a lot of the network operators have probably already foreseen this for a long time. They've got a wealth of data around their customers, and I think it's one of those things where they're actually probably working with partners to sort of say, actually, how do we use this data in a way that can potentially help your customers, or you understand about your customers. And I think, in terms of the smaller players, I think, yes, there is probably a challenge to sort of a small player to potentially work with the likes of a massive telco provider. But I think that's slowly being broken away as most of these telco providers realize that actually there's a wealth of information and knowledge around this space, and it's actually in their benefit to work with the smaller players in the market who are fairly disruptive and probably providing unique point solutions to the retail space.
Interesting stuff and interesting times. Kash Ghedia, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.